Hey, everybody, welcome back to 32 All the Way with Doc. Again, it seems to be happening quite a bit the last little bit. We are skipping back over the pond, so to speak. We are going to welcome Mr. Michael Ross. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I can't complain, can't complain. Thank you for taking the time out today. We had a big technological mess there trying to take care of things this weekend. It was my fault, and then it wasn't my fault, and it was my fault again. Oh, terrible. We're going to be talking today mainly about, you have some new stuff coming out near the end that we're going to talk about, but what we'd like to focus the interview is on the Wand Chronicles, which as of to this point has 4 books. We're going to mainly give you a little rundown here about the prequel, and maybe you can add what you'd like people to know about this series without giving us too much so they actually go and buy them. The time is fast approaching when humans will meet the elves of Lanikia for the first time. How and where will they meet? Has someone or something arranged this meeting? How will the elves deal with the backward bumbling humans from the earthen dimension? How will the humans cope with the magic of the elves and of Alvina, the most powerful wand in the cosmos? Be prepared to be entertained. Be prepared for magic. Unparalleled adventures await you. And this is the first in the 4-book series, which are followed by Elvestra, the Sorceress, Key of the Empath, and Eternity.
Mm-hmm.
So, like most series, I'm assuming we start at the beginning?
We do. In fact, the first book, the prequel, will be a freebie, and it's a shorter book. It's a short story that lays out what's going to be coming up in the adventures. And that's the prequel. Now, the funny thing about the prequel is that Amazon wouldn't let me do the prequel. They didn't like the name the prequel because they said that, well, that is a prequel. You can't have that counted in a trilogy. Okay, so I said to them that I have a spaceship called the prequel. Oh, they said that's okay then. We'll count it as the first book. So
we were just speaking about this before we came on the air, and I think again that is just the North American, or maybe the North American English language mentality. When I first saw this, I thought the same thing. I'm like, well, prequel, yeah, okay, because usually you get your you get your movie franchise, you get your book franchise, and you get 3 or 4 of them, and things are great. People run out of ideas, and they say, well, let's do the prequel. Let's explain to everybody how all these guys met. So yeah, I can kind of see their concerns. This was the conversation we had before we turned the camera on. The big difference between, I guess, what something might mean for you in the UK and what something might mean here for us. Not to put down our American friends. I'm American by birth, but I think maybe we just have a little better understanding of it in Canada because there was so much emigration and migration here from one point from people from the UK.
Yeah. Oh, I think so. So the prequel itself, it's all about the elves and the humans and what happens when they meet. You see, I come from a background. I'm an actor. I've been acting all my life, and I'm a method actor. So like Meryl Streep or Dustin Hoffman and so on. Okay. And I find it really helps me if I can research a character and make that performance as real as possible. So I brought that into the books. This is what I wanted to do, is to make it as real as possible, not too futuristic and science fiction-y. I wanted people to think this could be happening now. We go in the future a little bit. We go to 2087, but it happens literally just down the road from where I live in the UK. There's a portal that happens, and humans meet the elves. But you got to remember that the elves have been around for about 3.5 million years longer than we've been around, so they're pretty well advanced. But the question happens between ourselves and the elves: how come we both got arms and legs? Maybe they have pointy ears, they're a little bit taller. So using that as a basis, that comes into the story. I don't want to give too much away, but we are connected way back in the past. And that is explained in the prequel, and then we embark on adventures, which takes you all the way through the various books.
Are you one of those method actors that drives everybody crazy? You come home in character?
I do it at home with my family too. They think it's crazy, but yeah, no, no, it just, and I think it comes out in the books. I'd like to think from reviews I've had that people said it feels like you could be there. You know, this is what happened in the wood when the portal happened, and so on. And I mentioned the humans as bumbling because we are. You compare it to a race that's been around for 3.5 million years longer, then we are going to be bumbling around. But actually, we were arranged to meet because of what we as humans have done to our world as it is at the moment. And they've come along trying to help us get it back on track. So there's a moral sort of climatey changey thing there, but nothing political, nothing at all, but it's there underlying. And they're helping us trying to get back on track. But of course, in between all that, we do have the most powerful wand in the world. It's not like Harry Potter's wand at all. This is the one that sort of it integrates into the arm and then takes over the body and so on. So it's a very, very powerful one, which everybody in the cosmos wants to steal and take away from Laniakea. So with that basis, we come across all sorts of species. You see, I'm going to tell you something now. Please don't tell anybody else, but I've still got the mind. I've still got the mind of a 6.5-year-old boy. I've always had this imagination, and I'm a pantser. Is that a familiar term in where you are?
Maybe, but to me, no.
Well, let me tell you, a pantser is somebody who writes by the seat of his pants. I've tried the old classic way of sitting down, planning out the whole story. I can tell you a story, beginning, middle, and end in 10 minutes, but then the specifics of so many chapters, the title of each chapter, the characters. No, I will sit down, I'll have an idea, and I'll let it flow out. And I found that for me so much better. The only problem with that is that you wonder if your writing's any good. And so only when reviews come in and people say, yeah, it's great, then you think, oh, well, it's working for me. And that's how I've done it. I mean, each of those, the 3 trilogy books are 110,000 words per book. So there wasn't a lot of sitting down and structurizing and everything else. I sat down and wrote by the seat of my pants, and it's all worked out quite well.
I find that fascinating that you say this, because especially now that we're getting into an area that some people might consider science fiction, an area some people might consider fantasy. One of my personal pet peeves when I see this online is the whole woe is me of having to plan your story or your backboards and all that. It seems, amazing that to have 4 books out of the first series that you came up with the idea and just mushroom from there. Because again, I don't, this whole idea of you have to have 2 hours behind the desk and you have to have so much work done. It's never ever worked for me. It's never worked in that regard. Having said how you do that, do you still try and give yourself a certain amount of time every day, or is it just, this isn't happening, I'm going to cut the grass? Or
well, I don't only just do this. I still do some acting now, and I've got an international fitness company that I developed. I mean, even with the books, I'm busy at the moment because I wanted a hook to go with the Wand Chronicles. So I designed a board game, and it was voted the top 10 best board games in the UK last year. So we're just getting it all manufactured. So there's been a lot of work that takes me out, but I don't say I've got to sit down for 6 hours every day and write. But when I do sit down and I've got the time, I can write for 6 hours. I don't run out of ideas. I just sit down and I can write. But of course, like you, I mean, I have family as well, and family time.
yeah.
And I've got dogs, and I like to keep fit. So there is a slight structure in my life, so it keeps everything running. For example, today I've written 4 chapters in this new series I'm doing, and it was great to do. So I will write every day, absolutely, but for how long, I don't know until I've done it.
So you're absolutely, from what I've heard so far, not in the tortured, annoying writer category. the person where the interviews from my side kind of go off the rails for a bit. I hate to show my bias for anybody's work. I think anybody who sat down and actually had the time to complete something they realize how much time you put in. But it's just, again, this whole woe is me. I don't know. I can't deal with it. I can't at all. It's very refreshing to hear somebody have so many other things outside of this. The writing seems to be the end all be all, and I don't know. It isn't that way for me. Maybe it is for other people, but.
Yeah. But I think it's sometimes people find it interesting knowing how in fact, Paul asked me how I got into writing.
How did you get into writing, sir?
Well, thanks for asking that. Well, what happened for me? Yeah, what happened for me is there was I have written my very first book was a true life story. My wife was attacked and murdered, and I had two small boys who were 4 and 6, and we had a year-long murder trial. 3 months into all that, I went to see a clairvoyant. I just felt I need to go and see one. Whether you believe it or not, I went to see one. And she told me some amazing things which helped me personally a lot with everything to do with that. But then at the end, she was almost grabbing me by the lapels and saying, "You must write. You have to write." I said, "Right." I said, I don't even know if English is my first language. I was pretty bad at it. So I thought she meant spiritual writing. I would sit at a desk with a candle and let my sort of pen write gibberish. Well, after 4 days, I said, that's not right. So then when everything finished about a year later, I just sat down one night and decided to put the story down of what happened to myself and my children. I'm a very positive person. The upshot of all that is that it went on to do extremely well. It's been all around the world. It's called Just 5 More Minutes. I still get mail now from people who say it's helped them from all walks of life, whether they've been, I had one lady who had cancer who was due to, she only had about 2 or 3 months left to live. And she said, I was in a dark place and somehow your book has helped me come to terms with it. And I'm ready for what's going to happen. So it's very humbling. And I always said I'd written it. If I can help one person, I'm okay. But this, it's gone all around the world and it's done extremely well. So that's how I got into the writing, really. So then I wrote a comedy. So sorry, go on.
No. I was just going to say, so from all the years of being on stage, this was never a thought before this point in your life?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Never. Yeah, it was a clairvoyant. Wow. I have to blame her. Then I wrote a comedy, and then I have since written children's books from very young children to young teens, young adults. I've enjoyed all the different genres, but fantasy and epic fantasy is where my mind is at, where I can just let things flow out, and it could be annoying to some authors for me to say this, but I just find it quite easy to do and let it come out with the characters. So that's where I want to be really with my writing, is in epic fantasy.
It's amazing. Like I said, it's so, again, refreshing to see somebody who's embracing the whole deal. And, this is how we have to take care of it. I understand that everyone has to deal with the technical side of it, or if you want to refer to it as a mechanical side, and then the public relations later. But again, if you can't handle the aspect of sitting down and writing it, it's not going to go any further. So, well, you find sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the frustrations as an author that is self-published is that I really just want to sit down and write. I have now, after several years I've got an editor, I've got an illustrator, I've even got a music composer and so on. But when you come to that crunch bit, you get your book, then there's the marketing side. And that I just find really difficult to cope with, because all you can get from a lot of people who deal with on the marketing side is you pay me money, we'll do this, but there's 100% guarantee you won't be a success. And that is like, I might as well go and throw it in the river. So it's a very frustrating little gap to go from books that are okay from reviews and so on, to then making it so that a lot of people know about you and want to read your books. That's the frustrating bit for me.
I think, again, and I was using the comparison with another person, it's just anything that is not totally standard is just hard for these people to put into words when they promote you. You know what I mean? I was using the example with someone the other day, like the young man from the Twilight movies. I can't remember his name. He's going to be the next Batman.
Right.
And that's great. And the photos look great, and the things they have. But man, can you give us a couple of years to forget the guy who played Batman just recently?
I know.
And the guy who played him before, and the guy who
No,
played him before. And it's just anything out of, and any, I hate to use cliches, but anything out of that box, people, I don't know what to do with this. Well, just read it, man. Read it and come back and tell me what you thought. So, but we were talking before the camera came on. Do you find that now you're obviously getting people reading these? Are you tailoring your English? Because as soon as I came on and I heard your accent, I know I'm going to get at least a couple of comments later on. I didn't understand a word that guy said. To me, it just flows. My father was Scottish. My grandparents were Scottish, spoke with accents their entire lives. Do you have to tailor this when we're putting in the writing? Is there, gobsmacked or something, and you think, oh man, there's no American that's going to get that?
Yeah, no, I think it's only right. And I think that's part of hopefully the skill of being an author, is that you want people all around the world to read it. And of course, a big part of the world is the biggest country is America, of course. And I want Americans to understand. That sounds very rude to say American. We're all on the same place. Let's get it right. But to make the language readable, it helps them to enjoy a book. And so, I mean, I have put at the back of the book, not just for Americans, but for anybody, some phonetic help with some of the long Elvish words, for example. I've not made it too complicated. It's not like Tolkien. And my descriptions of people won't go on for 5 pages and you feel like you want to commit suicide. It's not like that. To me, humor is a great thing that you can even find in the darkest, deepest moments. So I bring those into my book as well. And I want everybody to enjoy it. I have a little character who's Chinese. He's called Dingling. Okay. He's a very brave little man, but he's also likes to let people know that he's very wise. And he keeps coming out with Confucius sayings. And there's one little scene where his boss, it's Hugo Bruff, the English general, he's thinking of doing 2 things at the same time, which is going to spell disaster. So Dingley is trying to tell him that maybe it's a bad idea. So he uses his Confucius saying to tell him. He says, Confucius would say, Master, that you don't take a sleeping pill if you've already taken a laxative pill. So he brings these things into it that then... because even in real life, there will be little bits, touches of humor that come in. Dingling, for my beta readers, the people who check all my chapters as I've written them, the one person they didn't want me to kill off was Dingling. So he survives. And in fact, he's come into my new series, which is called Big Fairy Adventures. So he's there as well now. And after, maybe 400,000 words, the main characters are as real as some people I meet in the street. To me, I wouldn't say that to anybody wearing a white coat from the Happy Insane Asylum, but I keep that to myself. But yeah, they become very real, and I like the characters. So Dingling is with us.
I don't think you can carry on that far with them without feeling some kind of affinity for them.
Yeah,
there's a small example in my own. I told you earlier, I try not to talk about my own when I'm writing, but there's one guy that we just 3 or 4 different people said, like, he's got to come back. So why is it? He just does. And then we were trying to fit it in. And I took the opposite tack, that he would be kind of a ghost that hung over the next book, because there was just no good way to do it. But how many characters are going to show up? You don't have to tell me all of them, but how many people or plot lines or maybe semblance is going to show up from the Wand over to the Big Fairy Adventures? Because you're already saying that we're definitely going to see Mr. Chinglet there. Anybody else coming for the ride?
Yeah, Mr. Dingley will be, but our heroine in the new set of the Big Fairy Adventures, obviously there's a lot more fairies involved. And I have a fairy who's, she's lovely. and I'm very respectful of her, but she just loves her nectar too much. And so she's a rather overweight fairy. You always know when she's flying along, if you can't see her, because she's always bumping into the wall. She's covered in bruises, and she's called Tinker Tanker. But she has a heart of gold, and Dingling and Tinker Tanker just have this friendship that's unbelievable. Talk about little and large, but even so, she's about 8 inches tall, Tinker Tanker, but she's going to be in all these series. I'm looking at maybe possibly 15 to 20 books in the Big Fairy Adventures. I have a map in front of me now. I'm in my man cave author's den here. It's the Fairy Queendom of Les Lemony. And I have on there characters and places in this fairy land, and each one of those is a book. But I don't know anything about it, but I know it will be a book.
That's amazing. It's amazing to have, you've got the idea, what about the rest? Well, we'll deal with that later. We have the idea.
Well, you know what the secret is don't sweat the small stuff. Don't worry about it. I know some people, I've got author friends who will sit down and they psych themselves up to do some writing, and they're really worried that it may not flow. Life's too short. I try and approach it with a feeling of a little bit of being casual and just let your mind go and let it write it down. I've been very lucky. I've got a number of beta readers, and very rarely have I had to rewrite a chapter. Little bits I maybe have needed to smarten up, because I always like a punch at the beginning. I like that rush which takes you through, and I like you panting at the end, wanting to think, what's going to happen next? So I try and do that with every chapter. And it's in the back of my mind, so hopefully it comes out in the writing.
Do you suggest the beta readers? And I'll tell you why. From mine again, it just didn't seem like something that would fit in for me. But I like, some people swear by them. Some people seem to get annoyed by the criticism. Or when we're talking beta readers, like, do you have one? Do you have a half dozen? Do you send it out to a group? What is your preferred method with dealing with them?
Right. Well, first of all, depends which series it was. Wand Chronicles, I had 5. I always made it a point never to have family as beta readers. They're just too nice. It's never going to work. So, and I decided, because I wanted this book to go through America as well, that I had 2 lovely ladies that are American beta readers. And I said right from day one, you've got to be critical. You've got to tell me what you like, what you don't like. As if you don't know me, you're not talking to me. You're able to say what you want, and that has worked very well. Now, look, I've done books for children. I've done one called The Moon and the Magic Box, and that's for young teens. I thought, to get beta readers for that, I'll get children of that age group to be my beta readers, because they can tell me, said, oh, that wasn't cool then when you said that was very old fashioned. Well, that's fine. Okay, so I'll make it cooler. So and the one now, funnily enough, with the Big Fairy Adventures, I only have 2 beta readers, and I'm fine with them. I make a point that they only know that they're only going to be there to not correct, unless it's glaringly obvious, the grammar, the spelling, the punctuation, and so on. I'm leaving that up to my editor. But what I want from the beta readers is this flow. Is the idea there? Is there a flat bit in the middle of that chapter that needs to be looked at? And that's what I want from the beta readers.
That's amazing. Like you said, yeah, it's a subject that I've seen a lot, and some people want to talk about it, some people don't. I think it's hard for anyone to accept criticism, but it seems to be a positive experience for most.
Well,
for most authors.
You got to remember at the end of the day that whatever the beta readers say, I'm God when it comes to writing my words.
Oh, sure.
Down. So I can take it, I can use a little bit of it, which I've done sometimes, or I can disregard it, But it is I found beta readers helpful, yeah.
Sir, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put all your links onto the bottom of the page. I hope everybody has a chance to talk this out. I did not know about some of the other things until we start speaking about it. I was mainly focusing on the books, but the acting, the life story, and all that. Please, when the Big Fairy Adventures continues on, or you get to a certain point where you've released them, you have an open invitation to come back anytime and speak to us. This has been very, very interesting talk.
Lovely. Nice to have met you.
Thank you for your time, sir. 32 all the way with Doc checking out. We'll see everybody soon.